Good. We're live. Kati, first let me tell you, it's absolute pleasure to have you as a guest and a partner in the talks that you'll have about the project management, project sponsorship, leadership, and it's honor actually to have someone with such experience as a guest, and I guess that our attendees will have a lot to learn from you. So welcome officially.
Thank you very much, Marco. I'm very happy to be here, and hello to all of you there online. Nice to meet you as well. I look forward to your questions and the interactions during this coming 1.5 hours, and I hope everybody has a comfortable place to sit down to relax and then join in.
Absolutely. And of course, already the usual message to everyone joining, please do ask questions throughout our talk. We'll try to answer on them as you ask them. So it's our talk, your participants, so please do ask. Well, Kati, for people who still do not have a pleasure to meet you, maybe to start, how come that you become a Kati Rook that you are now? So you had a vast experience from financial management to project management to leadership positions. So what was your career path until this moment for our talk?
Yeah, well, to start out with, I live in the Netherlands, and I'm turning 44 this year, and I have a Dutch husband and 2 cats. I have locked my study room so that the cats will not join us because they're otherwise very curious every time there's a camera about. So living in the Netherlands, but by my nationality, I'm Finnish, all the way from the Arctic Circle. And I actually did my university degree in Scotland, in St Andrews, and that was international relations and Russian, a joint degree. And my plan was originally to head off for a career in diplomacy. And then during my studies, I just kind of began to think that, well, it's maybe not me. It's maybe more administrative than I would like to have as my life's career. And towards the end of my studies, there were a lot of companies coming to recruit from the university, and like BP and Shell and also IBM and so on. And then pretty much after my studies, a couple of months after, I was headhunted to go to work for IBM, and I ended up spending there 16 years. I went in thinking that, okay, well, let's see this first year, if it's nice, I like, but
give it a try.
But I ended up constantly being challenged with new things and interesting things, and also getting education. I started in IBM 2000, and I was basically in customer fulfillment, where I also went quite quickly up to on a region level leadership role there. And then from customer fulfillment, this was in UK, I then moved to IBM Finland, where I moved to the finance area of IBM. And there as well was then promoted from financial analyst to become a CFO of a joint venture, which was a subsidiary in Finland. And from the finance world, I then hopped into management, and to my first management job, which was directly to an upline manager position as a second line, into service delivery and
That's
into project
from today's perspective, I can tell you.
Sorry?
That's very interesting from today's perspective that you go straight to upline management. That's very normally you would go through the first levels of management and you go up. Yes. But it's I guess the testimony of confidence that your managers had in you.
Oh yes, and because even when I was in finance as a CFO, I was also steering the CFO team for the Nordics. So I had already been displaying the leadership skills needed, even though I didn't have a manager tab or anything like that. And I did the IBM management training, which was actually combined with the Harvard University. I mean, I must say IBM has excellent management training. So I did that for 2 years. And then even when I became a manager, I continued with those studies to follow up and so on. And And I moved to this first management position into project services. So basically to one account, massive account, where there were about 80 project managers and technical solution managers, as well as we managed solar solutions. So it's a whole group of project-based services that I was then in charge of for one client, and in a client-facing environment as well. And after that position, I was then, I clearly did a good job, because then they promoted me to take over the Nordic role for the same. And I actually created a unified and standardized Nordic project management services, where we had whole holistic view for the project management standards and education plans. I drove in agile and so on, the methodologies, and also all the processes that supported project work and so on. So to standardize that and also drive same tools for all the countries and accounts. So from that perspective, I have, for the last 8 years with IBM, I was working with basically project managers as their upline manager. And I found it an exciting area because not only are the projects constantly delivering something new as well, and there's a lot of innovation and stuff going there, but it's a very vibrant surroundings, and a lot of intelligent people with lots of leadership skills. You
Absolutely.
From project managers, you need to expect, of course, certain level of leadership skills. Not that they need to be the managers of people, but those skills will help you to be the excellent PM. And I also was dealing with a lot of situations where I got escalations of projects. They were either in trouble, either with budget or with the scope or with the schedule, or sometimes I got complaints about project managers' behaviors. And we can talk about those examples as well during this evening. But so this is my background to project management, and of course I have been a sponsor myself for many projects, strategic projects, internal projects, but also driven those myself, a lot of projects and continuous improvement efforts myself, where I needed to be the PM on top of my actual management job. But that just, you have to be hands-on as well as a leader. So that's why I know what the work is in practice as well, even though I don't have Prince certifications, no, but I have done the basics of PM training some years back, and I was happy I did it, because it has helped me along all throughout my career.
Absolutely, and that's the excellent segue to the next questions. But what my impression is, when you were talking about your career, you touched, and actually not only touched, actually actively participated and led so many important areas for a project management community, starting from these finances. Do you hear me well? You hear me well?
I can hear you. Yeah, I was just looking at that. Is my screen okay? Because I see that some people are not able to see.
Yes. So from some participants, we hear that screen is fine. For some participants, say that screen is rotated for 90 degrees. What I do not know, guys, can you confirm now? Do you see Kati's screen well? It's fine for me. Anna is saying yes, and Alexander is saying no. So Alexander, I guess that we will somehow need to agree.
I'll hold my head like this.
Exactly. We will find the compromise on 45 degrees. So I don't know what to do now. Simply, it's for some it's good, for some no, depending sometimes on your device also rotation. But let's continue, and in the recordings we will see how look and feel will be, and then also we'll also try to set it up. But to return back, so you participate in so many areas that are key for project managers. You also said that a PM has to have leadership skills, and I cannot agree more, because as you may know, we are also having these educations for PMs where we really try to find this balance between hard and soft skills and to have these leadership skills. Then you were in a finances that is absolutely one of the pillars of a good project management. So to know what the cost is, what the budget is, how to work with that one. And then you had this unique experience to report to people, of course, but also to be a sponsor for a project managers. So we'll try somehow to grasp all of these very important pillars of your career when we'll speak. But maybe the first topic that comes as you also changed your careers, right? You have been in IBM for 16 years, and you may say it's a one company, but it's actually many positions. And one of the questions that often pop up is, are project management skills transferable? How they can help you in your career? So how being aware of how to organize your work transfers to different positions. And having this experience of yours, what's your take there?
Okay. I could also add that after IBM, I've been the entrepreneur for 4 years in the Netherlands. Yes. And especially being an entrepreneur, you have to be constantly managing yourself, be very strong at managing yourself, your time and your efforts. But that, again, I had also inherited from my years in IBM, that you need to do a kind of strategic thinking of your own on where you are wanting to go, and all the time think about the future, that where you want to be, and then work towards that and manage your time by prioritizing that when you where you spend your time most, where the reward is the best. And when it comes to do you mean also building CV as in towards the leadership, or
well, look, more of a, so in project management you get these planning skills, you got this controlling of your scope, controlling of your schedule, I mean planning in time. So when that is maybe a perfect example. Let's take this transition of from IBM to internship. So you have been in a positions to lead your teams and plan their work and have this clarity about outcome. Always, right? So when you have been a project sponsor, you had to have this clarity about outcome, where you want to go. So how this transfer, for example, to your internship or in your experience there, how the planning of work, the control of your schedule, the control of your budget, how this transferred to your entrepreneurship, let's say.
Well, basically, quite easily, because within project work, you also have to put down the budget and figure out where do you get that budget. You need to figure out your resources. What can you do yourself? What can some team members do, and so on. But also, when you are an entrepreneur, you need to do a business plan, and that in that business plan, that's like your project plan.
Absolutely.
So in a business plan, you do the same. You put down the scope, schedule, and time
the budget.
The budget, and that's the same thing. It's your project plan, and then you start your business living by that. And again, all this project running experience from IBM days helped me to get into my own business then in a very structured manner, but also good points from project management, risk analysis,
absolutely,
and exit criteria, and SWOT analysis, all these kind of things. Again, they came up in front of me when I was doing my business plan. I thought, oh, this is easy. Oh, I can do this. But when you then run your own business, there's of course other kind of elements and things that affect you. But it's pretty much the stakeholder management that is so vital in the projects. When you transfer that to becoming an entrepreneur, for example, yes, you have your clients, whether they are B2B clients or retail clients or so on. And then you have your staff, possibly your suppliers, and your landlord for the office location or the shop location. So there's multiple stakeholders that you need to kind of balance out and keep in the in your ongoing project. The thing with the business is that's one ongoing project. There's hopefully never an end to it. Whereas or you can split it into smaller projects, of course, when you start it up, or so on. But it's basically an ongoing project based on that business plan. I couldn't but laugh at myself on some of the first days when I had started my business, and I found myself standing in front of my own Kanban chart, hosting a stand-up meeting for myself. And I thought, oh, Kati, you really, taking some of this agile stuff really seriously. But it kept me always sane, and also on track on where am I spending my time today? What's the key things to do, even if it was just me there.
Absolutely, and I can even share a screen with you that of the same thing that we are doing for organization of our webinars and trainings, and it is something, even if it's a few of the good practices, it still keeps the world organized in a way.
Yes. And this is what I was referring to earlier on, that if there's anybody out there who is maybe hoping to become a manager in the future, or become a leader in senior management or executive levels, doing project management is one of the key skills that I have personally found that it's helped me to always approach, no matter what kind of chaos or new situation or a new job. I have had those structures from project management in my head on how to get on with it and get stuff done, and that's always kept me on track, and then the results follow. So it's a very key skill.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be there if I do not agree with you 100%. And a range of skills and techniques that you are getting, and especially then later as you go on in your career, especially in this, it seems to me, soft skills area and leadership area, the more complex organization is, the more complex challenges, the more stakeholders are there, the more you're likely to utilize all of these skills from start to the end.
Yeah.
Kati, one thing, now we mentioned a bunch of things that already, and it seems to me that we will definitely not answer all questions, because it doesn't matter. I just like to talk with you. But one of the things we already mentioned, a lot of things that are incorporated into project management and general leadership areas. But some of those are being automated. Some of those being reduced to quick activities by using some of the artificial intelligence mechanisms and so on. And actually, we even cooperated back then 4 years ago on some of the projects. Exactly. And what's your take? Take into account our experience in this area and your experience from general. What do you think? Will project management will be taken over by artificial intelligence? That's a big question that we're getting.
Well, robotics is of course hitting all around, and I see that this is going to be developing into a hyper-automation area. Hyper-automation meaning that the robotics will take on the simpler tasks, and they will learn from project managers to, for example, create a project plan and so on. But then when the project plan needs to be adjusted, for example, then the kind of hybrid version is that there's also the human interaction, that the project managers who sit with the clients face to face have that human interaction, and negotiate with other organizations, because often projects touch different teams. The robots, the artificial intelligence, I so far can't see how they can do that kind of negotiations between organizations on the impacts of the projects and so on. And that's where the human interaction is needed to be done. And then the human comes and tells this team member robot that, hey, we have agreed this and this. Can you adjust the project plan for this, for maybe hours, or add this to the scope and so on. And at the same time, of course, the robot will learn how these things go. And the more they learn, the better and improved project plans the robots can then create, because they can use all that data in the background, and there's this continuous improvement cycle ongoing. But it's not a full cycle unless there's also this human element. And for example, any possible audits and so on that might happen, and do any findings and so on, that's then where the humans need to add those things there and teach the robot. So the robot is kind of in the future, I would see that robots would be team members for project managers, and project managers dealing more with this kind of leadership science than the actual administrative bits, and adjusting the documents for the project plan.
You put it beautifully, saying that robots will be a team members of a team managers, and it's this kind of inclusive approach, more of accepting and improving rather than being afraid of things. Maybe I'm naive in that area, but I'm really optimist in that sense. From whatever I've seen until this moment, it seems to me that these robotics and artificial intelligence in a sense of interaction will just take over these parts that are boring, right? That are actually, inspiring, right? And then they will just take over these parts, allowing us to think about things that needs to be thought of, rather than
exactly, yes, but also do then this kind of things that need the human interaction of, like, negotiating that, okay, is this exit criteria now agreeable to the client and to the company and so on, that those kind of things I don't see robots doing. They need that leadership skill and the negotiation skill of the project manager and the sponsors. Very important. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, maybe the time will prove us wrong, but I do agree with you on that point. I'm really looking forward to a system that is so good in supporting project managers, so that actually they can think about things that are being thought of.
Maybe it already exists. We just haven't heard of it yet.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
It's all out there, so it's definitely possible.
There is a huge effort being done in these areas, and in the areas of automation, writing meeting minutes automatically, generating job plans based on a predefined project scope, and so on. Hopefully, as we go, it will be faster and faster in that sense. So let's see. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise.
Kati, you mentioned the project sponsor already a few times, and this is something that you're bringing as your experience that is very valuable for every project manager. So before we go into any specifics of the interaction between project sponsor and project manager, so in your words, for our attendees, what the project sponsor is, so who the person is.
He or she is the person who has ordered the project, who is the owner of the project, who is getting the actual deliverable, who is going to do something about it, with it. with the project end result. So it could be, for example, in an organization, it might be the region executive who is wanting to get a tool project run, so that everybody will use the same travel logging tool across the countries, and that's a whole program to be run, and they are the owner. But they will have a program manager and project managers who drive it. But they are the executive sponsor, the owner. Or it could be a client who is a sponsor, that they are getting the project deliverables, but it might also have the company executives as the client, and then the delivery company executives also as a sponsor. So then it's not necessarily only one person, but it could be different ones. Like I have done some strategic projects, so that there's been me as the head of my organization, and then a head of the sales side of the organization, together jointly driving a tool change, for example. So yeah, so that's a sponsor.
And then it seems, well, for a project manager, seems like an important person, right? A person that actually is a key for project success on one side, and then very important person to speak to communicate, to understand. But it seems to me very limited amount of time, because if project sponsor is just ordering something to be done, he probably has a bunch of different things to be done. And then we see often disconnects and misunderstandings sometimes between project managers and project sponsors, if there is no this common understanding of communication between them. So what from your experience, what are the most common disconnects in communication, the most common problems between those two entities?
Well, to start out with, for me, a sponsor is also the face of why the project is done. So if it's, for example, an organizational change that is to be driven through, like agile or lean, that kind of things, or other kind of organization changes that will impact the individuals in the organization, the sponsor has to be the face that is constantly talking and telling the whole organization, every employee, why we're doing this, why is this important, what's in it for you, so that the teams on the ground understand why this is being done. And then it is easier and smoother for the project manager and the project team to get on with their work, and they will encounter teams on the ground who are already willing to support and willing to take part. And this is where I have sometimes seen that, especially when it comes to organizational culture changes and so on, that if the sponsors are kind of dumping that on the PM doesn't have that kind of a route to talk to organization and the influence to talk in that way to people. So the sponsor needs to be the PR person, in brief, for the projects, why we're doing it. Also, when defining the scope, if sponsor is the one who is ordering this project, they need to be also actively defining the scope and telling what do they want, what is the end result they want, what are the exit criteria. They need to be involved in that discussion. And again, here I have seen sometimes mismatches on sponsors being rather vague, or then project managers leaving it at that and not daring to challenge the sponsor, to really push them that, yes, but what is it exactly? Where do you want to end up with this? What benefit does it bring to you? Ask the right questions. Ask the sponsor. You have the right to ask those questions. You are the PM, and if they want you to do a good job, you need to ask those questions. And trust me, I think they will, after all, if they don't get irritated, I hope not, they shouldn't. If they are ultimately the client. So if you go to a shop and somebody, the sales assistant is trying to understand better what you're going to use this for, they are also able to help you better. So that's the logic in this bit.
Yeah, that's as in every interaction, it seems to me that there this responsibility on both sides, right? So first of all, a project sponsor who has to say clearly what does he or she needs, and with the actually expecting end results. But then again, on the project management side, you have to ask for this information, right? So that's so one niche thing. So if we have here a project managers or future project managers in the audience. Speaking from a perspective of a project sponsor, as you were, what's your ideal scenario to be to order a project, to be a sponsor of a project? So, for example, if you're a project sponsor, what's your ideal scenario to give some work to someone, and that you simply know it will be done, and how you would like to cooperate with these project managers, so that our listeners can actually put themselves into this position, so that they know actually what a project sponsor expects.
Well, first of all, it comes down to this concept of managing upwards. What is meant with that is that just like you manage yourself and you manage how you manage your employees or your colleagues or so on, but you also need to manage your boss. And then the sponsor is also, well, for the time being, they are your boss as well. And in that managing upwards relationship with the sponsor, what I am looking for, and what I have actually seen really good examples, is that communication. Agreeing, first of all, with the sponsor that, hey, how do you like to be contacted, Kati? That if something comes up, would you like me rather to send you an email, or shall I just give you a quick call? Because not everybody necessarily reads emails with sense of urgency, but they might like to, or they prefer verbal conversation. You know, it's just preference. Some people like to read the factual evidence in a long email, but some people rather take it quickly on the phone, ask the questions, and can go on. So to agree that method first, because you need to be able to contact your sponsor quickly, because if shit hits the fan and so on, you need to inform them. But this comes down also to this informing the sponsor at the right time, about the right things. You know, I as a sponsor, like you said earlier, I have had also lots of other things to do. I've done my full-time job still, but to have a PM who has come to me, given me an early warning sign that, hey, Kati, in this project team, we have this one team member who is reluctant to collaborate and has shown this and this kind of behavior. I am going to deal with it myself. I have already talked to him, and I'm going to do something else with him now. But if that doesn't work, then I'm coming to you, Kati. And I'm like, okay, good. All right. I know that they are trying proactively to solve the situation, but I'm already aware of it. You know, there's not going to be any nasty surprise. So when she then came back to me saying that I couldn't actually solve it, so I think you better have that quiet word with the person. And so I did, and we moved on. And this way, communicating the risks and early warning signs on time, not to be afraid of telling about those, not to be ashamed about sharing those, talk about it. And I'm not again saying that, right things at the right time, not every single little problem thing, of course not, but the right things at the right time in the communication, and you can get a lot out of your sponsor to get things moving when you get stuck. Secondly, also, what I quite like is that the project manager uses me as a sponsor, so that if they are new to the environment or the organization, for example, absolutely, that they ask me that, hey, Kati, ask you, in your network, do you know somebody from that and that organization or so on that could help me with this one? Because I don't know who should I contact there. They are the sponsors. They know the stakeholders and the motives behind. So when being asked this, I'm more than happy to help, because then I know that they're going to the right direction and not barking at the wrong tree. And, so these kind of things as examples of good sponsor and PM relationship.
Absolutely. It seems to me we often say that whatever we do in the project management is 90% of it is communication, right? So even a good document, when you send to someone, is a way of communicating certain information. And what you said was very important for me, that especially for someone new in the organization, if they do not know the rest of the organization, they can simply ask this project sponsor, like, whom should I contact with? Who are the people that I'm missing? And this is something, even in our training, I think it's the first lesson about stakeholder map. It's really creating a stakeholder map, and it's numbering down the people who are important, where definitely your project sponsor is as one of the persons, and then can help you to build on it. And then the next lesson is actually how you would like to communicate. So what meeting types, right? So ask your project sponsor how she or he would like to converse, right? Simply don't be afraid of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes on some projects, I noticed that there was also maybe a misunderstanding, a cultural misunderstanding even, or a personality misunderstanding in communication, that where somebody from a more hierarchical culture a project manager was wanting to be polite and respectful towards higher executive sponsors and the stakeholders, and was in the meetings letting them to take the space and humbly, trying to let them speak and so on. But they were from a very non-hierarchical, the sponsor and the stakeholders, non-hierarchical culture.
Culture, yeah.
And yes, and they were expecting, roundtable style discussion that and very direct. If you have a problem, you just say it and so on, and you take stage. You take the place as a PM and tell them, the sponsors and so on, what are you supposed to do? What is the decision we're looking for here today? But when they felt that the PM is not then in control, because they are not, they're kind of hiding away, where the PM was perfectly in control, but was just from his own habits and the cultural background, wanted to be so polite. So these kind of things as well, and there was no lack of skill or so on. It was just total, misunderstandings. So, it sometimes boils down to these kind of things.
What you would just not to lose this topic, was very interesting for me. So you have different cultural background. So what I often say, the more people I meet, the more people are similar in a way that deep down we love in the same way, we hate in the same way, we have similar ambitions. However, we do have these kind of I call it communicational interfaces. So different ways of habits and way of communication. What you would advise, especially if you work in multicultural environment, what you would advise to project sponsors and not, let's say, across the team, how to approach these cultural differences? How, for example, someone from Finland works in a team like you had, for example, from India, from Poland and Czech Republic. What you would advise to everyone in these countries, how to overcome these subtle differences in communication?
Studies, simply. I mean, there's the internet and so on are full of studies of leading multicultural teams, lots of books about the topics. or you can, even when you are dropped into a new project and you map out that, okay, there's people from different kind of cultures, you can already kind of do a bit of background studies about how do they like to work. But even more importantly, I find, because we are still all individuals, so whenever you have a new group of stakeholders and team members in a project, why not just start out the first meeting with something fun, that ask everybody to put on a PowerPoint slide or something, if you have to do it virtually, as we normally would nowadays anyway, but on a PowerPoint slide, some pictures of themselves or the history, to open up a discussion that, okay, so who put this picture here, who is this, and then they can tell a bit about themselves, but also or perhaps about the culture, and you can agree in the beginning of the project jointly that, okay, we've now agreed these and these kind of timetables, because when we have meetings, because India is that and that many hours behind, or so on, or okay, can we agree as a team that because in that country and that country there's a public holiday then, so we would do certain things on another day, so kind of taking into account these kind of things, but jointly just discussing it, and more importantly as well, including in each meeting something nice to ask somebody, that, hey, I heard that you're having this week some sort of a celebration week out there in India, that what's that about? So a little bit of soft openings in the meetings, and you always learn a bit more, and suddenly it just gets much smoother, and the communication, no matter what kind of cultural backgrounds they are, it gets more relaxed, and you get to tune into each other's ways of dealing with things better, especially in these kind of remote teams.
Yes. One thing I'd like to hear from you, what do you think about it? Very close to what you said. One thing that we are proposing is this, a little bit about me, one PowerPoint slide where you have where I come from, who am I, and then what I do with my family, this kind of non-business pictures of your activities that you like to take, and just 3 to 4 sentences about your career, but just to just a skeleton of who you've been. It proved to kind of bind the team together. What do you think about similar things?
Oh yeah. I've actually done that with my management teams when we had new team build up, or we got new people in and so on. So it was just like one picture, and then then there's an interesting story behind or something like that, or coming back from holidays. So with a smaller team, I'm now talking about just with a smaller team, like 10 people or so. So again, sharing one holiday picture, and in the beginning of the meeting, having a quick walk through those, and hearing a bit of stories, and then hopping into the business. But it also kind of brings in this kind of a smoothness and glue between people, and lowers the bar for the team members to contact each other in the other countries, to grab the phone and call them when they need help, because they already feel they kind of know them through this kind of activities. And I could talk about the remote management and creating team team spirits, even if you are sitting in different countries, because I loved always trying to think about new ways of doing things. And I was quite famous of having my daily morning meetings starting always with 3-minute joint mindfulness meditation.
Really? So you were actually you were on front of the global movement then. If that was several years ago, then it's now that's popular.
Oh yeah. No, I started already then. Well, I basically offered it. It was like a morning meeting with 15 people, and what we did was that I asked the team that, hey, would you like to try this kind of thing? That I could run this 3 minutes meditation in the beginning of each meeting, because they were often coming from other meetings already, and quite hectic for the morning already. They're kind of overloaded. So I thought, why don't we do that? Because then you can get your mind calmed, and then we can go into our business, you know.
What were the reactions of your team when you started? What was the
well, there was of course some there were a couple of people who were not like, well, I don't find this for me, but it was not a forced thing. 3 minutes. The rest of us, you didn't need to have the camera on or anything like that. No. That we did it so that they could listen to the sound and the storyline, what to think and how to go through and so on. And after the 2 weeks, when I asked the team that, well, we've now tried it for 2 weeks. How do you feel? Do you want to continue this? And the majority wanted. So with that, we continued. And then they even I was once calling because I had to, in the last minute, cancel my morning meeting. And then this one Danish colleague called me later on during the day and said, Kati, I was so looking forward to that meditation. I had a horrible meeting first thing in the morning, and all I could think was, I just want to do Kati's meditation so I could calm down. And I thought, well, that's lovely to hear. It's useful, and I do hope that those who did like it. I'm sure there were some who just did their own emailing in the meanwhile. But hey, each for themselves, and what works for some may not work for other. But that was the majority rule, so we kept it, and it was now lovely. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, for the past several minutes, we spoke about these get-together things, non-business things, building these relations, and often you would hear, "This is mumble jumble. Let's do the business. I mean, let's concentrate on the business." But now, what is the effect of what we spoke about on these getting-together teams and so on actual productivity later? So is this really just kind of a new age jumble, or it's actually worth to invest?
It works because I've tested it. When I was pulling together this new project organization in the Nordics, and because it was very scattered, and I was pooling the different teams and the different managers and so on together, and they had worked very much in silos before, but when getting them together and we got to know each other, and I also included the delivery center, the centers of excellence management as well in this group of managers and that I was leading. So the silo attitude was disappearing. Little by little, and quite fast, I must say. And again, as I said earlier on, because they began to know each other, it became easier for them cross-border, give a call to one another, ask for help, and get some peer-to-peer discussions going on. That I didn't need to be all the time there, to be the connecting bridge. So the team began to really work also on their own. And nicest was as well that I was able to run remote online brainstorming sessions and get the team excited and get them going and get the thinking hats on and sharing ideas and experiences. And that doesn't happen unless you put in some of these kind of soft things as well. And like with this 10 managers we had for quite a few years, I actually hosted every Friday 15 minutes virtual coffee break, and no business talk, just 15 minutes, everybody somewhere in a sofa somewhere with a cup of coffee, and then just talking about weekend plans or whatever it was, what you're planning to eat tonight for dinner. I don't know, something, something fun and nice. Yeah. So it's worthwhile the investment. I mean, hey, goodness sakes, it's not even that, it's just natural being human beings type of thing.
Absolutely. And often I hear approaches like, I don't have time for that. I have my emails to respond to. I have my business to work on. But it seems to me that if you don't have time for people, then what your priorities are, how you will handle your business if you don't actually invest in your people first, isn't it?
Yes, but I would even question then that of the person who feels like that, I would stop to think that, am I maybe a bit overworked? Am I really enjoying the work I'm doing? If I have to be constantly, like running with the blood taste in my mouth and no time for anything else, that I think especially younger generation, they want the working day also to be an experience, not a kind of prison camp that you just survive every day. I think this is also a generational thing, perhaps, and I am firmly believing in it that you should go to work and also enjoy and have a bit of fun as well. And if you feel that you don't have time for any of these kind of small things, I'm not now saying that you need to hang around at the coffee machine for half an hour wasting time. I'm quite time efficient to myself in that sense, but if it's a few minutes even and a gentle chat in the beginning of a meeting instead of instantly driving in and so on, small things. It doesn't mean that you have to invest hours on end into these kind of things. It's no, but could be stress factors for many people when they think that, oh, this is too much, I don't have time for that. Maybe they are stressed.
That's also a huge topic, I guess, that we can spend hours on time management. So what are your priorities? So for example, I consciously make a decision that emails are my last priority. So if I cannot actually answer on those, I often have 900 emails unread every Friday, but that if I spend quality productive time with the people speaking face to face or over conversations like this one, then I have to choose, right? So I have 40 hours weekly. That's what I have. Before we move forward, guys, just to remind you, we do have time to answer to your questions. So please do ask questions. In the meantime, we will answer them, and definitely we will, Kati, not cover everything we planned. So you already have invitation to somebody in the future to come for another talk. Returning back to these relations in a team, taking project sponsor also into account as a team member, of course. Often people are afraid or don't feel comfortable to provide feedback to each other, but also to a project sponsor, and especially in this sense of managing up, of providing a feedback to someone to whom you report to. So what are your advices for someone who is just starting in this area and would need to provide a feedback, both positive and constructive, as it's called, to a project sponsor or a boss, for that matter?
Yeah, it's always a bit of a sensitive one, this one. So I'm already wiggling in my chair a bit uncomfortable because well, first of all, from the sponsor point of view, I have sometimes myself, as well, not only as a sponsor but mainly even as a manager from my direct reportees, when having a one-to-one with them and giving them feedback, I have also asked feedback back. That is there anything that I could do differently, or do you feel that this is working out, that how we collaborate together and so on, or is there anything that we should discuss from the point of view of how I do things to you? So I'm not traumatizing anybody, but so and then openly asking that. Of course, then from the direct reportee point of view, some of them have felt really comfortable, depending again what kind of persons they are. If they're very direct and so on, they might instantly say that, well, you could ping me less in same time, thank you very much, in an instant messaging. Or some maybe going slightly uncomfortable that, oh, I don't really know, but you kind of smell quite quickly if there is something, So giving the opportunity, first of all, from the boss or the sponsor, in my view, should give the opportunity always in this kind of one-to-one chats as well to discuss, as well as in the very start of the kind of boss and or the sponsor and PM relationship. I said earlier on, agree on the mode of communication, that how often and shall we include in these some of these chats some feedback as well, that or could you just let me know instantly if I'm doing something that you don't agree with, and so on. So kind of making the early on agreement on how do you give feedback, then it doesn't come as a surprise to neither party. And usually I find that the feedback is best given when situations occur, not of course in front of everybody or so on, especially if it's something a bit more sensitive. But giving feedback to your own boss if they don't ask for it, and if it's a sponsor of the project, and you feel that they should support you more or so on, you may take it either to say that, can I give you some feedback? You could ask a permission to that, can I give you some feedback? Or personally, I would perhaps choose the route then, if it's a very difficult sponsor, by the way, then I might choose the route of approaching, for example, that, hey, I really would need your support in this matter that I'm struggling with. That could you maybe even help me, coach me, or so on, and try to get them to do the thing differently that has irritated you or troubled you, by just leading them into the discussion on it without mentioning necessarily feedback, because not everybody can take it.
Yes, that's huge, actually. I think that, and also as a project sponsor, a leader or a manager, very similar positions, by the way. I think that you need to show that you are listening, and that actually that you are acting on the first smaller things, let's say. So, for example, if someone says, I guess, hey, I would like us to start on time for meetings, and then if you see that your project sponsor heard you and that actually he or she is starting these meetings on time, then next time you'll probably be more comfortable to say, hey, listen, on this call, I really felt like thrown under the bus.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean you. It depends on the sponsor, of course, on what kind of personality they are and so on. But you need to be, of course, also true to yourself and put your boundaries. That what is acceptable behavior, for example, from the sponsor, and if they are not behaving in an acceptable way, you have the right to take it up and really starting out by asking, hey, can I give you some feedback, or I'd like to share that I didn't actually feel good about this one because of you saying that or so on, and taking it up. So there's of course personalities that I've might be the kind of a sergeant majors that if you've seen soldiers in a line, and sergeant major comes checking the line, and they come this close to your face to shout at you.
Exactly.
So those are situations where you just those are kind of people that are harder to get feedback to accept feedback. So choosing a bit based on the person, how to approach it.
Question for you that is completely out of blue right now. Speaking about people who cannot hear a feedback. So, for example, let's say that you had a person that you are trying and in various ways to provide feedback to, and then you have sometimes these persons that simply do not see themselves any differently, but their own personal view, and they don't want to hear. They want to hear a feedback. So what do you do when someone is simply not reacting in any way to what you are saying on some specific instances? So that was always a question for me. So when someone is simply does not getting it.
Okay. I've a couple of times in that type of situation, I have arranged something social with those people. Either going for a lunch or coffee, maybe a couple of times more often than I would have necessarily planned to, or even out for a meal or something if possible, and talk about other things as well to kind of get the atmosphere and relaxed in a way that they get to know you better. Because sometimes I felt that it may just be that this person doesn't trust me because they don't know me that well. They don't trust what I'm trying to tell them because they somehow feel that she wouldn't know or understand me. So trying to build some sort of a approach from a softer point of view to get to know each other a bit more and share a few laughs if possible. That's always the greatest way. And then they kind of start opening up their ears better for the things that you try to say and things that you try to get through. And it doesn't mean that you need to be brown nosing or anything like that. No, it's just simply creating a more human rapport, which helps them to open their ears. And I have felt that that's in general has worked. Not necessarily 100%, I can tell you, but it's definitely made things much easier. And ultimately, I've always managed to still get to at least compromises, if not all the way my way, but compromises. Yeah,
that's interesting. That again, going to this human touch, let's say human approach to understand the person, but also to give a chance for that person to get to know you, right?
Yeah, but this comes to the leadership skills again. If we refer back to that. And in leadership, you have to have the emotional intelligence to be able to do these kind of things and to try to figure out where the other person is coming from or what might cause them their reactions and so on. So and that for project managers as well, it's emotional intelligence, very important skill. Part of the leadership skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I see this very strong connection between project management as an area and leadership. Let's say as a some consider it kind of separate area, but it seems to me that they are very connected, fluid between each other. And this emotional intelligence is both necessary in how to get someone from your technical teams to help you out, but also how to lead your team or speak with the sponsor or anyway. It's very interesting advice, Kati. I must tell you, thank you for that. Now I'm just now scanning the topics because of course we are very good in talking. So just to to pick topics that are maybe the crucial for our listeners. So maybe from your experience of a project sponsor, what are some of the worst examples that you have seen in the project delivery, so that actually our listeners would not repeat them? What are some of the missteps that you wouldn't like your team members to take, or maybe some faux passes that have been there? Can you recall some of those things?
Yes. Yeah, I was a sponsor on a project where we were to deliver a tool change, and the project manager on it very capable and skilled, as I interviewed him myself and so on, and got him started. And we were just about 1/3 into the project, and I began to wonder why the project team members were coming directly to me to inform me about the possible risks and hold up banners that we have these kind of warning things here going on and so on. And I had the presentations from the project manager, and he didn't talk about these things at all. And I still got the messages throughout the field, and I was wondering, why is he not communicating these to me and then to another sponsor? There were two of us, and took it up with him in a feedback discussion that, hey, I'm kind of wondering that why is the team coming to me and they don't come through you, and you don't include these kind of informations in our packages, because I need to know and I want to know because I want to help.
Sure.
And and he had more of this attitude that he's more like an administrator, that he just does the reports and so on of the budget and scope and schedule and so on, but to actually talk to the team members, to hear how they were doing and what do they see, to listen to them, he completely kind of ignored. Well, in my feedback discussion with him, agreed that okay, he would change his ways, but ultimately it didn't. It just didn't materialize, and it boiled down to the problem that in this particular case, the PM just didn't. This was the first time ever he was actually doing a project that had remote project team all around different countries. So his skills of interacting and getting the teams to talk to the teams remotely or so on, even though tools, of course, absolutely were there to how to do it and so on, but he was not used to it. So it was not in his skill scope. Right. So I actually then, because it already frustrated the project so much and myself and so on, that we just simply didn't have time to wait for this person to pick up
skill build up. Yeah.
You know, so I had to then change to another project manager, where again I had a new project manager, very eager and definitely skilled in the remote doing, but his communication then with me, and that took some time to get to the same page, that you can tell me anything and not to be afraid. I'm not going to kill you or strangle you. Tell me if there is a problem as soon as you hear about it, because then I can help you and I will help myself, basically, because I've got vested interest. Because he was so very, very polite that he went around with multiple sentences when he tried to express a problem, kind of afraid that my reaction, and I tried to tell him that if you don't come straight to the point, I will be totally, lost with what you're trying to say. That and then we had a good laugh about it, even because because we realized how different our communication styles were. And then sometimes when he started to do that, I was like, hey, there you're going again. Yeah. So,
excellent.
but it's to just openly discuss and so on, and then it worked out. But this as an example of when it doesn't work out or when there is a hiccup. But the best ones, I would say, the best scenarios have been really that I had one a strategic project and a project manager on it who really knew how to keep me as a sponsor firmly in her grip. She gave me very brief, clear statements of the progress. I had no wasting my time on any kind of nitty-gritty details or anything like that. And she always made it very clear that, and Kati, this is what you need to do now. This is where we need you. And by the way, you need to study that in order to do this. So I was never at loss on how I can support and can I help. And so and always the early warning signs on time. So that is the kind of a project management style that I really have appreciated in the colleagues that I have seen.
That's amazing to hear, because whenever I'm presenting project management to someone or bringing someone in, let's say as my favorite area, so I would simply like people to join. I'm always pointing out first that okay, you have to have a knowledge, technical knowledge, procedural knowledge, and things that are necessary to plan well and so on. But you simply need to have these soft skills, communicational skills, leadership skills. Right from the start, I would say, of course, to build up. So even when you start and your team is small, you can start to practice what precise communication is, and that is necessary. I guess it clearly represents into your examples, because it's about communication in both. Those two project managers may have very similar procedural technical skills, let's say, but what made the absolute difference between them is their communication skills. And
exactly. But that's again in leadership skills as well. You need to be able to adjust your communication to your audience, to whom you are speaking to, in what kind of situation, and that goes all the way to the leadership styles as well. When to be more coaching, when to make the clear statements that this is what we're gonna do, this is what's happening, more informative and so on, or then be the inspiring one, get people thinking, bring the faith and the energy into the team and so on. So switching between those leadership styles and the different communication styles, I think that's where it comes down to, not only for executives and managers, but also project managers, because you are dealing ultimately with human beings.
Nicely put. And actually, that's I think that's the point. I think I would print your quote.
Because sometimes it's silly. It sounds nearly silly to say.
Yes.
But sometimes we just forget that it's actually human beings that you're dealing with, rather than just
subject matter experts
and the technical things that whatever you're delivering, or the products or so on. So it's forgotten often. So that's why. Yeah,
it is. And it is simple at the end of the day, right? But it's. I think that every project manager should have this kind of a quote printed out on desktop. Like, you are dealing with the human beings.
Yes. Or nearly get a psychology degree then at the side of Prince to
and PMI. Exactly. You spoke now about this switching between different communication styles and so on. And one question that we are getting often is, what are the differences between management and leadership, and are they mutually exclusive? Can you be a manager and not to be a leader? Can you be a leader not to be a manager? How those things? Maybe what a leadership is for you, first of all, and then maybe to segue to what management is to you, and then how those things relate.
Management. I'm now trying to quote what I learned in the Harvard Business Reviews and so on. More about managing and getting things done through other people. The more operative things, steering the teams, giving them guidance, and planning ahead their daily work and so on, that kind of things. But then leadership is about strategy and the execution. Strategy in a sense that as a leader, you need to be always looking ahead. You need to be always planning, not just the next step, but the next 2-3 steps ahead, and teach yourself first about all possible new things that are out there that might be beneficial for your organization, and constantly follow the markets and the client needs in order to then match that into your strategy, and that strategy leads to your execution plan, which then leads to your daily management of making it happen. Yeah, so that's how I see these bulks. And well, I was taught in the management education that as a manager or as a leader, you have 3 things you do. So if you do any practical things, you do some administration, or you need to log into a report. Secondly, it's the manage part of your day, where you do exactly these daily meetings and coaching of your team members and performance feedbacks and all that. Then you have the leadership part, where you give your teams the vision for future. You repeat constantly the messages, why we're doing things, what are the goals for the company, and how you are interlocking to it. So of these 3 things, when you are, for example, a first line manager, you're probably still doing quite a bit, like maybe 30-40% even, and then you still have the management, you add another 40, and then the lead probably about 20%. Then the higher up you go in the management roles, to senior and executive, and also to C-suite positions, the amount of do gets smaller. A little bit. Depends on the company. Where I came from, you still do a lot. And so we are very hands-on, but that suits my personality, because I like to get my hands dirty. But the do bit, but then the manage bit also shrinks more, and the lead bit grows, because you need to be the one, like the lighthouse, constantly repeating the message, like the light goes around, and giving the direction to all the team members out there where to go. So it evolves from that, and yeah, I don't know. I hope that made sense.
Absolutely, it makes absolutely sense. But what you were presenting also is that you still have all of these things in some percentage, but you still have all of them.
Yeah, right? Still all of them. Yes.
Yeah. So it's often there is still a question like, what is the difference? Can someone be a manager and the leader? So you have to navigate, it seems to me, between these areas. Right?
Yeah. I in my experience, at least, you no matter what level of management you are, you still do management, but you do leadership. It's just that you do them in a bit different portions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kati, question that. We still have just 8 minutes more, but maybe good.
This went fast. You said it so
exactly.
fast. Oh gosh,
Exactly. Actually, that's actually right at the start of our talk. I saw that we will not cover more than 50% of actually our planned topics, but doesn't matter. Absolutely doesn't matter. One question that we receive a lot, and actually we had the discussion on LinkedIn recently about it, is, can leadership be learned? And now if you scan your experience of 20 plus years, and if you recall all of your bosses or people, regardless of org chart, actually, can leadership be learned? But what for me is maybe even more fundamental question is that, what are the prerequisites for someone to be able to learn, right? So what are the prerequisites that person has to be a leader, a good leader in the future? But I have no answer on that. What's your take?
I believe it can be learned. I know there's also the school of thought that you're born to be a leader. You're a born leader. Yeah, some people like to also think they're born leaders, but they may not be that in other ways than in their own mind.
Born, that's all.
I do believe it is possible to learn. The question more is that if you are interested to learn. Because learning leadership skills requires you to be genuinely and becoming actually excelling in those skills, then it needs that you are interested, you are dedicated as well. That's like with any other learning as well. You don't learn if you don't want to. It just, nobody can pour it into your head. So you need to have the genuine interest, and also genuine interest in the kind of human psychology and the human interactions, in a sense that how they work and how you can with your actions impact and influence and also support others. So there needs to be the genuine interest to learning the leadership skills. But of course, in my view, you need to have certain competencies and so on already, or focus on developing the ones that you may not have. For example, being able to do collaborative influencing, like reaching out to other people and building bridges and collaborating with others very well. Be a good listener, be able to have the emotional intelligence factor in the game, good communicator. So that kind of skills are excellent as soft skills to have in the pocket to then go into the leadership studies. But leadership is also, as I said, there's a set of soft skills, but there's also the strategic parts that is pure business as well, Yes. So business acumen. So it's a wide combination, but I think that's why it's so interesting, and it's forever study. I mean, if somebody claims they are a perfect leader, well, I'd like to meet them, because we're all human beings. We're all human beings, and if there's anybody aspiring to become a leader or develop leadership skills, my advice would be that be aware of your weaknesses, but let yourself totally go crazy on your strengths. Just, enjoy what your strengths are, because then you shine, and then you become excellent, outstanding leader, instead of becoming a mediocre of just working constantly to improve the weaker points, because we are all human beings. We have our own frailties and so on. I won't tell you what mine is, but there is some. So but that would be my advice, that always be aware and try to think, but also let yourself enjoy the parts that you are good at.
That's excellent advice. I haven't heard it actually before, as put as such. So excellent one. There is also this concept now. I think that Simon Sinek is recently proponent of it, of this infinite mindset, that you just need to be better today than you are yesterday, and that you are constantly learning and improving on yourself from yesterday. Similarly, like Jordan Peterson also in his book 12 Rules for Life actually is covering similar concept, that don't compete with the whole world, compete with yourself from yesterday, and it makes a lot of sense in that.
Yes. But that's the self-awareness from emotional intelligence, that being self-aware, understanding your own reactions and behaviors, and trying to keep an eye on it. What you can change, change. If there's something you can't change, try to be aware of it.
Absolutely. Kati, we have 2 minutes and we have one impossible question to reply on. So it's absolutely impossible question. And let's try to answer it in 30 seconds. So we have a question that is saying, how long does the project usually last and how long was the longest delay? So it is a question that you cannot reply on, but what's your first thought?
Oh, I'm not thinking if it's projects from my entrepreneurship time, or if it's projects from the rest of the 20 years. That's impossible to answer because
that is absolutely.
Yeah. How long was the longest delay? No idea.
So,
I'm sorry, I won't be able to make any sense to this question. Absolutely sorry. Because it depends so much on the projects.
Exactly. So you can have a projects that are a couple of days, 3 days a week, that are absolutely small one. Request for services are good choices there. But then you have these transition transformation projects of several years.
And then we're talking about years. So it really varies. So whoever asked the question, I understand why they would be asking it. And this would be, I think, the joint answer that it depends on the project.
Absolutely. And the longest delay, well, I have some. Well, I had projects that have been delayed in a time span, but also I have some that have been put on hold, and then due to some technological situation, they were simply dragged on this hold for a year or a year and a half. But that doesn't make sense anymore. That means that strategy on its own needs to be reflected, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why would there be a hold. I mean, then it should be just cancelled and restarted with stuff changed during that time.
Absolutely. So Anna is saying, just to say big thank you. So encouraging discussion, so many useful tips. So if this is close to reality, we cannot be more happy to that. And Kati, we are right on a half an hour mark, hour and a half actually, half mark. And thank you so much for joining us. It was a wonderful talk.
Thank you very much, everybody out there. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Such fun.
Kati, you have already a new invitation for some future talk. Let's be in touch, and good luck with your entrepreneurship and
thank you very much.
current affairs.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.